Good evening, this is Tim. I hope all is well. This is my submission for assignment 6A for ED 531. I hope you enjoy. So when thinking about what the problem I wanted to focus on was, obviously throughout this course we've looked at a lot of different demographics of students. We've looked at issues of religion, of race, of sexual orientation, country of origin, etc. So there's a lot to choose from. But over the three groups that I focused on, the American population, religion among college students, and the international student population. I think the thing that stuck out to me the most as an issue on college campuses that requires a significant amount of programming, I think, and outside the classroom investment is the social isolation of our international student population and what that really means, and how institutions can put things into practice that will do this. So with that, here is my plan to look at that issue. So I'm coming at this from my institute from Caldwell University. I designed it based on that institution since that's sort of the inner workings that I know. But I think that what I have in place is something that could work with some minor changes at any institution, and certainly scale comes into play and resource and all that, which we'll get into a little bit later when it comes to barriers and potential conflicts. But I think that this is something that institutions could probably think about something along these lines to address this issue of social isolation with international students and having them have the best experience that they can during their college career. So I've called this program CU Worldwide. I think that that sort of encompasses the idea of what it is supposed to do and the environment and community that we want to have, and the message that we set forth, that we are a worldwide community or a global community. We are made up of students from all different, for the context of this group, all different countries of origin. And even more than that, regardless of whether they're international students or domestic students, from backgrounds that span the globe. So I think when thinking about what the name should be, the idea of CU Worldwide, and also the pun on, CU and CU coming into play. The idea of wherever you are from, that we will see you. We will see you for who you are, and we will see you for what it is that you represent and what you hold dear, and what your values and such are. So what this program will look like, this is a co-curricular / extracurricular program. Ideally, there would be some partnership built in with the academic side of the house on this, but I'm going to talk specifically about what this program would look like in the outside of the classroom experience, and then talk about, I think, some additional supports from the academic side of the house that could come into play. Because I think it's important with a program like this that it is not just in a bubble, in a vacuum, or in a silo. It is something that requires an institutional commitment for a program like this. Definitely your student affairs professionals would be spearheading it and would be a driving force behind it. But if the institution as a whole is not committed to this type of program, it will not work. So the way that this program would start off would be first let's think about the officers that are going to be involved. So I talked sort of broadly about it being a student affairs, student life, whatever your institution is. For Caldwell University, it is student life. So a student life-driven initiative, and the offices that would be impacted. First off, our Office of International Student Services would be number one. Obviously, that area is the most knowledgeable of the students that we have coming in, of where they're coming from, what their backgrounds are, their process of coming into the country, and their different demographic information. So that office, obviously. My area on the Caldwell University campus is student engagement. Other institutions, student involvement, student engagement, student activities, whatever the institution calls it, would need to be involved from a programmatic standpoint, and also from leveraging our student leaders and student buy-in into this process as well. Residence life would be an additional one from a programmatic standpoint, but also from a community standpoint, and bringing this into the residence hall, so it is not just there, again, isolated in one area, but so that it is part of the entire experience of the international students. So residence is certainly an area that we would need to have come into play. Our health and wellness, I think specifically more our our counseling services and sort of wellness in that respect, as to programming around coping mechanisms and sharing and having discussion in group and things like that. And then finally, I think our campus ministry office would certainly need to be involved with this to bring in the faith perspective of this. If we're going to really talk about an initiative that is a true worldwide awareness initiative, faith certainly comes into play. And as an institution, yes, with a Dominican Catholic root or Dominican Catholic roots and foundation, but beyond that, an acceptance of all faith traditions and welcoming students from across the globe and really living the mission and living the message and the values of community, respect, integrity, excellence that the institution is founded on. I think those core values and the mission of the institution definitely involves faith sharing and understanding. So those are, I think, the key areas that would come into play when we are talking about this. So what would this look like? I think the first component of this would be getting data from the admissions process, from our admissions office, specifically those dealing with international students, and our International Student Services office, and getting all of the information about where it is that the students, our international population, are coming from, and using that to inform what the CE Worldwide programming would look like. So I have it broken down into a few different components for domestic students, for international students, and all of them obviously being the idea of having the whole population encompassed in this program and this cultural awareness idea. So the first thing that we would do is at the beginning of the year, we would take that data that we've received from the International Student Services and Admissions offices and identify all of the countries of origin that our international population are from. We would then, in the first week when school starts up for the fall semester, the first event would be a week-long global awareness week. And what that would be is a setup on the Colby University campus. Ideally, it would be outdoors, so it would be in our plaza, or what we call our Student Center or Newman Center Plaza. Or this could take place in a gymnasium, in a large lounge area, something that had a decent amount of space. And what this would do is have displays up from each of the countries that are countries of origin for our international student population. And each one would have some just different facts about the country, some photos, and when I'm talking about facts, the population, the major religious groups, the major cities, the capital, the language, and those types of things. Then for each one, there would also be a corresponding essential fact sheet for each of these countries. And what that would allow is for our domestic and international students to attend this during that first week of school and literally get information about every country that has international students on our campus. And this is the first step in starting to develop that cultural awareness and understanding, is just really grasping the information. I think that on some small scale, this type of thing might happen, but this campus-wide allows students to learn and to get this information right away when they come in, so they're already developing that understanding. In our text, Sujay writes about the components of having a consciousness, and one of those is having a basis or having a foundation of information about what it is that you're addressing. So I think that's definitely where this program will come into play. We would then have a speaker series, and that speaker series would take place on a weekly basis. There would be one speaker a week that are talking about some worldwide issues that are impacting or coming from the countries of origin for our international students, and also the relations between those countries and the United States, and some current events. That was another thing that was mentioned in both of our texts, actually, was having an up-to-date awareness of a worldwide and current events. So that's, I think, something that this speaker series would allow, and this would be on a weekly basis. The next step that we would bring in were student forums, where international students could host a discussion about their country or about their culture or whatever it may be, that would be open to all students to come and to learn about. It would be something that would be have sponsorship from. So for my area for student engagement and from hopefully our student government association or student groups, that there's some student buy-in as well, but where students would then have the opportunity to share about their own cultures, or students could do it together. If there's only one student from each country, they could split it up or whatever it is they wanted to do. But we would put that into place and support that. So this way there was sharing sessions purely student on student that are not necessarily a talking head that is in front of a room at you. I think faculty forums would also be a part of this. Faculty forums being the idea of our faculty members presenting or holding discussions or events, lectures, etc., about the populations of these countries, or a current event, or an issue, or any bit of information that deals with those countries themselves. Like as I said, it could sort of run the gamut of different interest areas, but this is a way for faculty to be involved in the process outside of the classroom, and for students, especially international students, to engage with their faculty outside of the classroom. In our text, in Sujay's text, so there is a big academic focus for a lot of our international students. So I think that may be part of some of the academic stress, is the idea of professor-student relationship and what that is. And I think this would help to facilitate a more communicative and almost even-keeled environment of open discussion with faculty, so that students are feeling more comfortable. Then finally, there are for the program component of it, there would be a student showcase. So at the end of the fall semester, this would be a chance for our international students to perform. And by perform, I mean any medium. It could be art, it could be music, dance, and when I say music, instrumental, vocal, poetry, anything that represents their country, to share that with the campus community. So not only now have you had displays, you have information sheets, you've had discussion, but now you're seeing what it is that some of these that our international population holds dear. So that is one end of it, and then another piece of CU Worldwide would be specifically geared toward our international students. The first one would be a US 101 series. So what I intend with that is for over the course of their orientation, and then built into the first 30 days of the academic year, there would be a minimum of an hour a week where the international population would gather as a whole, and there would be different discussions or speakers about U.S. culture, about the history of the United States, about just some background as to why the U.S. is the way that it is, how things work, how our government works, how our finance system works, education, etc. Fill in the blank. I think a lot of faculty and staff members, student affairs professionals, career professionals, etc., who work on college campuses almost take it for granted that our domestic students have a background in U.S. history, or have a background in, obviously, in being American, so they have at least some understanding of the country, the culture, the way that things work and whatnot. But the international students are coming in fresh, so they don't have that. So this would be a way for those students to become more versed in U.S. history and in U.S. culture. So that would be the first component of that. The second one would be a system of, whether we call them buddies, tour guides, mentors, whatever it is, where each international student would be paired with a domestic student, and they would meet. Again, it would be a once a week type of thing for at least an hour on their own time. They make their own schedule, where the students would take the international students, show them around campus, introduce them to their friends, give them some perspective as a student at orientations, at admission sessions, etc. You're getting a lot of information put at you by staff members, by faculty members, by administrators of some, but you're not getting a ton of student perspective and student information. So having them engage with the student, not only will they be getting valuable information from a student perspective, but now you've automatically created a type of bond and connection with the institution and with the domestic student, where the issue of the international students being isolated because they don't understand the culture, or they are apprehensive about meeting domestic students or whatever it may be. Now that is sort of, for lack of a better term, forced upon them, but it would automatically create that connection. There would then be a program, and this would go back not just for, and this is now looking back at the programming for the entire institution, that is would be from our ministry area, and it would be called Faith Around the World, and it would be information sessions and sharing groups about faith and about the traditions worldwide that exist in different religions, and what the values are, what the historical context of why the beliefs are the way that they are. Again, you're talking about an understanding where now you have sharing going on, and you have domestic students understanding where international students are coming from a religious perspective, and then you have international students who are understanding the faith traditions of their fellow students. So that is a background of CU Worldwide as the program. Now, when talking about the challenges, obviously with a program this large that has that many moving pieces, there are a lot. First off, for our campus, I know resource and money and finance would be certainly an issue. We, as a small liberal arts institution, do not have a lot of extra funds lying around, so that would certainly be something that would be a potential barrier, or at least a source of contention with so many areas vying for the same resources. As I mentioned earlier on, this needs to have campus-wide buy-in. This is not something that can happen in 1, 2, or 3 areas. It needs to be an institutional commitment. And this is where I bring the faculty into this, because if faculty are not on board with it, and this is not supplementing discussion in the classroom, and discussion in the classroom is not supplementing CU Worldwide, then we're missing it. Then it breaks down. If the entire campus and all of those who are having discussion and interaction with students are not invested in this, it simply will not work. So that's certainly something that we need to think about. This does require student buy-in. This requires student-driven initiative when we're talking about the mentors or the buddies that were just discussed earlier, but also from a programmatic standpoint. A lot of the programming would need to have the buy-in of the Student Government Association, of our student leaders, of clubs and organizations, so that there is a student backing to it. If we're putting this on and then students are not taking part in it, and students are not part of facilitating what's going on, then the message that it sends to international students is the administration is making an effort, but the domestic students don't care. So certainly that is certainly something that we need to address. And finally, the apprehension from the international students. This is essentially a program that is somewhat forced upon them, and that in itself can potentially lead to students being apprehensive about it, or students feeling as though there's an agenda being pushed that is not necessarily in their best interest, but it's simply to say we're doing it and that type of thing. So that's something we need to address, and I think that comes in with the admission and orientation process. Early on, they see what this program is. And I think that's something that when we're looking at how we overcome these potential obstacles to CU Worldwide, that we think about the promotion of this, the advertising of this, that it becomes part of campus culture. So there's literature out there that every incoming student gets about it. Students know coming into it that it is part of what they need to do. And the last piece to CU Worldwide would certainly be challenging is the hope with this is that with each incoming class, this would be a requirement for students that they do take part in this programming. So again, that is something that and anytime you try to implement a non-academic program that is required, you run into some issues with it. Well, exactly how, why is it required? How are we tracking it? What is the criteria, etc.? So that is something that we would certainly need to be discussed at an institutional level, so that everybody has understanding and students understand coming into it that this is just something that is part of the CU experience, and that CU Worldwide is built into it. The final sort of piece to this whole thing, and I think why this concept is something that is important in the where I am from text. One of the The pieces in the last chapter that we just read discuss the concept of border crossing being a term for the interaction between student affairs professionals and students. And I think that is sort of a microcosm of the entire discussion. The border crossing referring to breaking down barriers, crossing the borders that we also have set up based on our own identities and based on our own cultural understandings, and how to cross over, how to engage in the discussions and set a tone and environment where it is open discussion, where there is a commitment to understand, there is a dedication to this, and showing an institutional commitment to our international student population and giving expression to their values, their culture, and understanding for our domestic students, and on the flip side, providing opportunity for our international students to understand the backgrounds of our country, of the U.S., of the institution. And this way, everybody is essentially even keeled with this program. And now you have a campus that is in everyday practice preaching the idea of global awareness and global equality. So that is CU Worldwide. That is the concept of it. Obviously, I think that there are certainly some barriers in place, but I think if people have the best interests of the international student population and realistically of the student population as a whole at heart, that this can work. Yes, it requires time. It requires additional commitment. For my campus, on a campus that is small, people wearing many different hats, yes, it adds an additional thing that people need to do. But I think in the long run, if there is an institutional commitment to this, then it can work and would work. So that is CU Worldwide. I certainly welcome any feedback, question, etc. And I hope that this is an idea that maybe sparks some discussion. So thank you very much and have a great day.